Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Today, I'm addressing communication irritants, how to not let them bother you, and what they actually truly mean, aka the crap that people do to piss you off, and how to deal with it. You know, I find that when we're communicating with other people, or at least trying to communicate with other people, and trying to get our point across or trying to be understood, we use a lot of different technologies. We use email, texting, what have you, to try to communicate something, to try to set something up, to try to make things work in the schedule. And I find that often we get irritated. Communication lately can be a most irritating experience you've ever had. Because you have no idea sometimes where people are coming from. They might respond in the most vague, weird, isolated ways. Or some people just respond in multiple emoticons that make no sense whatsoever. And so tonight I want to talk about those communication irritants. Because there's a lot of them. And I'm going to talk about them at great length. Because we're going to discuss each irritant, but also, better yet, why it irritates us, how to stop it from irritating us, but what's the real big deal? What's the end result? Because a lot of times, these communication irritants get to us because we're expecting more out of people, or we expect people to take things seriously, or they just don't seem to be on the same level as you are. And we're going to be talking about that this evening because this matters. This matters because this can become very, very irritating, especially if you're trying to get work done, you're trying to get a job done, or you're just having a life and you're trying to communicate with people and you're getting responses that make no sense whatsoever. For most of us, we use emailing more in a business sense, more for work, for scheduling, that sort of thing. And so when we're dealing with email irritants, we're usually dealing with irritants that are pushing us back on a timeline, things that are pushing us back behind a deadline, those types of things. And so they can be kind of crucial when trying to overcome some of these delays. And I find that the first biggest irritant that I come across, and I come across this quite often, and I'm not getting a Medal of Honor for this, it really just sucks. I mean, literally, I don't know what's happened, and I think it's all over the world, but it might just be in certain countries, but I really think this is a worldwide epidemic problem, is that people don't read anymore. They've stopped reading. The majority of folks out there no longer read. They skim. They skim. And I've found that the more sentences you add to an email, the less likely you will get a response of any sort of clarity, understanding, or thought. I mean, honestly, the only emails that I normally get the best response from, the best emails, let me put it that way, that I get a clean, clear, cut response is when I actually send one sentence. And I know that sounds crazy, but we got to break it down for the ADD society right now because it feels like people literally just don't read. And they don't read emails, and usually they respond with something quite asinine or the opposite of what's going on. Or they are actually asking for something that can't ever happen. Like they want 4 unicorns to be delivered to their home on the day that you're flying out to Jerusalem. Okay, like it doesn't work. Like I don't get it. So let's talk about the people who don't read emails. And I'd like to give a couple of examples about that because I think that everybody can feel my pain when I discuss this. Everybody should be able to feel the pain that I am projecting right now because it happens all the time. A good example, recently I was working on a project and they asked me what dates I had available in a few weeks to discuss a project. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to be in town these 2 days. I'm going to be out of town the rest of the week traveling. And so it's only those 2 days, and I have 2 times per day, and I listed the date, not only like Monday or Tuesday, and I listed the number date, the actual corresponding date that it corresponds in the calendar, and I listed the times, and not only did I list the times, I listed the times and the time zone. Okay? And I explained, these are the options. I'll be out of town the rest of the week. I won't be able to make it. I immediately get an email back about an hour later saying, okay, I can do it on this date, but I can do it on that time. That's not even an option. You have selected an option that doesn't even exist. And it's amazing to me how clear an email can be, and someone just doesn't read it at all. Not at all. And there wasn't a lot of words on that email. There wasn't a lot of words or letters on the page. I didn't, gunk it all up with stuff. I literally was very to the point. Very to the point. I think there was a sentence and a half, maybe, like a conjugated sentence, where I used maybe like, a comma or something like that to basically make it not a run-on sentence. Okay, so there wasn't a lot of stuff on the page. And so it's like, I can't believe you could go from here to there and not get it. And I feel like a lot of us are getting a little disenchanted with the fact that a lot of people just don't read anymore. We're stuck in a society where people don't read, and in order to really communicate, you've got to literally go to their office, pull them out of their cubicle, slap them around a little bit, wake them up, give them a Snickers bar, get them some coffee, and say, dude, this is what I was freaking talking about. What is wrong with you? On a more positive note, maybe you can just pick up the phone. But the thing is that a lot of times we try to go with the desired communication that someone else designates as their desired communication. And what happens? You get squat. You literally spend more of your time putting out emails than actually doing real work. And I'm sure some of you are writing around right now going, oh my God, she's talking to me. And you know who you are out there. You know what I'm saying. You're trying to run a company. You're trying to get things done. But all you're dealing with are people that don't read, people that don't communicate, and people, when they do communicate, they don't communicate very clearly. Like you feel like you're guessing weight, at the state fair or something like that. You don't really know, and you don't want to be rude, so you're going to guess a little low on the weight thing. But you know what I'm saying? It's like it's a big guessing game. Who's on first, who's on second? I have no freaking idea. I didn't even know we were playing baseball. And that's what I'm talking about, the people that can't read. And I find it interesting because it can be the smallest of things that people just take for granted when it comes to an email. And I want to see that change, but you know what? I can't change the entire world on this second, on this day, and say, from now on out, everybody in the world is going to read every email and understand everything verbatim to the way that y'all send out emails, and I'm going to change the entire communication standard of the planet. I do have lofty goals, but that one's not one of them. So what I've decided on this show is, instead of trying to change everybody, let's work on us to figure out why it bothers us, but better yet, how to not let these things bother us anymore. Because isn't that more important than the other stuff? I mean, that's the key, is that if you're a good communicator and you're putting yourself out there and you're trying to get things done, you don't need to worry about how to open up everybody else's mind. I mean, that would be a great thing, and I look forward to the days that happens. But right now, let's just not get irritated by the things that seem to irritate us on a daily basis. I'd like to talk about the next thing, the next form of communication, because emails, basically the only problem we have with emails is either the people that don't read them and can't read them, or the people that just don't open them up or just don't respond. We've all had that, the people that don't respond. And then you try to, it's like, what communication level do you go to next? Do you call them at the office? How do you work that out? And it's very interesting because some people just don't want to communicate at all. Okay, FYI. And it's not all about you. It's not like they're like, oh, I don't want to talk to Gary. Can't stand Gary. Oh, God, there's an email from Gary. Oh, God, what am I going to do? No, really, honestly, it's not about you, Gary. It's about everybody that ever reaches out to that person because they do not like to communicate. And when we realize that, we begin to find protocol or move things to other people that actually communicate and have a say in things. The second communication irritant that I think is taking over the world today, I think it's taking over the world in droves. It's worse than the Clone Wars, really. Seriously, it's insane. And it's texting response irritants. It's not necessarily the text that you send, but it's a lot of times the responses that you receive back. Some of these responses can cause grave and great irritation. I mean, like chafing, like major chafing irritation, like the irritation that you want to literally jump out of your car and just scream as loud as possible until you lose your voice, and then you start kicking something and throw your phone down and break it because your voice is now gone, and now you don't have a phone to use, and then you're going to go to T-Mobile or Sprint or AT&T or Cricket or Verizon and stand in line for an hour and a half with no voice to try to get a new phone. You get what I'm saying, right? We've all done it before. At least we've thought about it. I remember when I was young, I threw my phone against the wall one time and I broke it. And I was like, son of a bitch, what the heck did I do that for? I just broke my own stuff. But this is the kind of stuff that irritates the crap out of you. And the first texting irritant that I think has to be addressed. This has to be addressed no matter what. There's no way of not addressing this first irritant, because I know for some of you this gets under your skin so bad. It's really bad. Yeah. It's like a flea that your dog brings inside that you can't find, that just eats you alive. This is it. The thumbs up symbol. You heard me. The thumbs up symbol. The thumbs up one. And you know, nowadays, because of the emojis we have, they have all the colors. Okay? Depending on your racial background, you can pick a yellow type color, a white type color, a brown type color, more of a mocha type color, and a black type color, and variations of those things. Some that look kind of more like a background color as far as maybe ethnicity, and some that look more like Mickey Mouse. I don't know, but you know what I'm saying? You get that thumbs up, and that can just make you want to scream. After you've sent a really, really lovely text, or a thoughtful comment, or you've given a lot of things that need to be addressed where there were several questions in the text, and all you receive back is that thumbs up symbol. You've been there before. I've been there. You've been there. And how did you feel about that? How did you feel about that where you didn't really have enough time to text it, but you took your time and you made sure that everything was spelled right and all was good, and the spell check didn't change anything from the luncheon to the lynching, nothing like that. It wasn't a lynching you were going to. You were actually still going to the luncheon and asking about those types of things. And all you get, instead of, yes, I will be there and I will be parking here, is a thumbs up, coordinating with the skin color of the person that's responding. Not cool. Not cool. To me, a lot of times it just tells you that they don't give a crap. They're not reading your text messages, and if they are, they could take them with a, with an ounce of care. The second texting irritant that I think has just gone too far, too long, and needs to be stopped. This is enemy number one when it comes to texting irritants. And I know some of you right now are going, oh my God, I wonder if she's going to say it. And you know I'm about to say it. You know I'm about to do it. You know I'm about to throw it out there. And this is more related to personal love relationships or dating. Okay? This can relate to that, or a friendship that's kind of on the rocks. Because usually this doesn't happen in business. It usually doesn't happen in business because normally you wouldn't be responding like this. This is normally an emotional type response, like I don't know, like shrouded in an irritating, just really get under your skin irritant. The K, just the letter K. Now there's two versions of this irritant. One is even irritating than the other version. The first one is the uppercase K. which is, I think, pseudo for okay, or okie dokie, the K, capitalized K. I like to refer it to as like the crab with a K, okay? The crab with a K, I'm not going to eat crab with a K. I'm just not going to do it. And I will not accept the K as a legitimate response to anything that I text. People do it all the time. And I find that I have a lot of clients that come into my office, being I am a therapist as well, guys, you know what I'm saying? And I have clients that come in, more women than men, because a lot more men do this. I know, I don't mean to throw it out there, but it's true. But the woman's like, what the hell does he mean by this? And so the whole hour of the therapy session is analyzing some guy's text messages to my client. And it's always interesting because sometimes it's just because she's just been texting so many times, you eventually just like can't handle it anymore. I mean, you're just like, I don't have anything else to say. And I get that. I understand. Not big on the K, but I understand. In those situations when you have your hands up in the air and you go, just please stop texting me. Please. Oh, God, please let her stop texting me. I can see how the K might be used. However, some folks do that coming out of the gate. They're going to throw that K out there to the first text message they get and respond that way. That is just rude. It's rude unless you have carpal tunnel syndrome. You are not allowed to do that. Especially if somebody asks you a question. If somebody asks you a question, is the meeting in the office on the 5th floor? Are we going out on a date tonight? What time are we meeting tonight to go out? Are we having sex tonight? Are you coming over? All of those questions do not accept a K. There is no reason to send a K over to answer that question because there is no answer to that. Okay? There is none. And we've all had that happen before where you go, oh my God. Now the worst irritant is the lowercase K. The lowercase K. Somebody had to legitimately go in their phone and say K or push the letter K and then take the cap lock off and go back and lowercase K. Like, I don't give a flying whatever. That's what that means to me. I even went in and took the cap off there, and I gave you not a uppercase K, I gave you a lowercase K, because that's about as much as I think about you. Seriously. Really? I mean, I like the uppercase K as much as I like the response yup. Y-U-P. Yup. Yep. Yup. Okay, fine. At least you got 3 letters and an exclamation point on that. But when it comes to the K, and when it comes to somebody having a lowercase K, no. Unacceptable. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. And by the way, give me your phone. I'm taking your phone. I'm taking it away from you. You will not get it back. You go stand in the corner with your nose in the corner, and you know what you did. Think about it. I mean, these things can be really, really irritating. The next texting irritant that I think has got to irritate the crap out of you is when somebody uses all emoticons to make their point. Especially that one emoticon where they're crying. And I don't know if it's because, they're laughing out loud or laughing their ass off or whatever. You know what I mean? So you don't even know if they're making fun of you or not. Like, some emoticons are cute. But some you're just like, I just think they're making fun of me at this point. What does that mean? And I find that when you receive that, it's like the emptiest response you've ever gotten in your life. Like, somebody might as well order you some food, send it over to your house, and when you open it, there's nothing in it. It's empty. It's unsatisfying. It sucks. It does not satisfy at all. All it does is go, what in the hell is going on over there? I mean, my first response is either they're making fun or they're completely stoned. And depending on what state they're in, they're either legally getting stoned or illegally getting stoned. One way or another, they're either stoned, they don't care what the hell I'm sending them, or better yet, that's just the way they are with everybody. You know, the next text messaging that I think is insanely irritating are rude texts and demanding texts. I always think it's interesting when you haven't heard from somebody all day and they send you a text that is like quite demanding, where you're like, what in the hell is wrong with them? Have you done this? Did you get this for me? ... You know where this is going. And so how do you respond to that? Your first response is you want to like jump through the phone, right? You want to like dive through the phone like you're diving in a swim meet. Dive right into their ear and beat the crap out of them. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you're like, what in the hell are they texting me this for? And these demanding texts are always very interesting, because it's kind of like, because you picked up the phone because we could have talked about this, but you just kind of threw that text message out. Did you know how rude it sounded at the time? Or was that what you were really going for? And I think that nowadays, with all this technology, unfortunately, I think the technology is doing a lot to divide us up. Because we have a difficult enough time communicating with other people because we're human. And a lot of us only think about ourselves. And so because we only think about ourselves a lot of times, we only think about how we would understand a situation, we're not very clear. And so the only person that could really understand us on a text message or on an email would be like our twin from another planet. It doesn't exist, at least on this planet at this time, and you're not emailing them, so that's a problem in itself. So that's the only person that can understand you. The rest of the people in the world have no clue what you're trying to get at, right? And that becomes a problem. The last but not least irritating text situation that you can find yourself in is the person who does not respond. The person who does not respond. And I'll give you a good example about a really rough situation of not responding. And this one, I know that some of y'all have been in. You've experienced it. I've experienced it. And it's really not fun because, like, you can't make anything up to make it better. You can't sit there and say, well, he must have been out of the country, or, well, you know, it just is what it is. Or maybe they don't have this, or maybe they didn't get this, or maybe they're really wrapped up at work and they got a lot of text messages and mine went way down at the bottom and there's no way of going around it. And you know what I'm saying? So we always make up all these things. Or maybe they were hit in a car accident, you know what I'm saying? You can't make up any of this. And I'll give you this example. When you text somebody, okay, actually, let me rephrase this. So the other day, this will make you laugh. So the other day, I was talking to a friend of mine, and in person, and we're standing there talking. And a mutual friend of ours, and I'm going to use friend lightly at this point, a mutual friend of ours, in parentheses, texted the person I was talking to right then, and then texted them again, and then texted them again. And it was funny because I didn't know. I was kind of standing off to the side, so I wasn't. First of all, I don't look at people's phones. I think that's rude. And second of all, I couldn't have seen it anyway, or wasn't looking for it. And it was funny because they brought up this person's name, and they go, "Have you talked to so and so?" And I go, "It's not. It's been a while, but yeah, they're great people, man. I really like that person." And this person was like, "Oh yeah, me too. They're kind of crazy, but they're cool." And we kind of laughed about old times, about stuff like that. And they were like, "Hey, by the way, he's having a party at his house this weekend. You should go. You should text him and let him know you're in town. You know, love to see you there. It'll be fun. I know that he's having, like, I don't know how many people over, but he's planning on having a party, and so you should definitely be there." And I was like, "Okay, yeah. You know what? I'll reach out." He's like, "No, reach out right now. And I was like, "Okay." So I texted while I was still standing in front of that other person, and I texted. And no response. And they got another text from that person right then and there. And I didn't say anything. And I said, "Hey, I'm going to run." And then I texted again and let them know, "Hey, it's me, by the way. It's Ashley Burgess here." I texted my full name just in case, because some people don't save your number. Some people have lost a phone. Some people's phones have fallen in a pool somewhere. So it's best to know that they know who's texting them. Well, sadly enough, I never got a response back. So I figured I'm not invited to the party this weekend. However, those can be painful experiences. They can be irritating and painful because there's really no way around it. It's not like he was in a place that he couldn't get text messages because he's texting the person right next to you. 2, it wasn't like he wasn't on the phone or the phone was dead. He's texting somebody at the same time. And 3, it's not like they didn't know it was me because my last text, I texted my full name. So there is a lot of reality that comes and hits you in the face when that happens. And it's funny because a lot of us make these judgment calls, but we don't really know exactly the truth. And it's interesting because it's not until you really get into somebody's psyche that you realize the reason why people do things, but it's not for you to necessarily figure out. It's not for you to necessarily figure out because you don't need to be analyzing every single person. Instead, better yet, you got to figure out why you're even involved in that relationship in the first place. I find that a lot of us hold on to relationships that are no longer working. A lot of us hold on to relationships that it's a one-way street. And we get really angry and we're like, so-and-so never responds to us. Or this never happens. Or this person's always dropping the ball. And a lot of times we got to sit there and read the writing on the wall. If you're always picking up the ball and throwing it back and having to go out there and field it again, that means that this is a one-sided relationship. And I'm going to be talking about these responses. I'm going to be talking about what they mean right now. And I'm talking about the fact that, it's interesting how it really does say a lot about the friendship, the relationship, the work relationship, the respect the person has, but better yet, maybe where they are mentally, emotionally, physically, where they are in their life, how important your relationship is to them, or how important anybody's relationship is to them, where you stand in the totem pole of friends, or relationship, where is this relationship going? And so there's a lot of different intricacies that are kind of explained with the way that people respond. Because the response is normally directly proportional to how somebody feels. And there's only certain periods of time that that's not true or certain circumstances. Whereas if somebody was under duress, if somebody only had a second to respond and they wanted you to know that they saw your message, there's a few things here and there, but those things don't happen all the time. If you continue to receive this, it's time to change things in your life. So let's begin with the people who don't read. So, when people don't read and they seem to not respond back with things that you sent, it's time to either respond back in that same mode of communication, email or text, with more clarity. But I find that it's time to change up the mode operandi. I find that it's time to make a change, and I like to use the phone because the phone is an amazing tool that I think can cut through the email and texting BS. And it's interesting because back in the day, we all talked on the phone, and we talked all the time, and I remember I had some friends that were on the phone 24/7. I mean, when I first got my first cell phone, my bill was astronomical because you know what? All I did was talk on the phone. I mean, I would talk on the phone until the battery died, charge it, and then start talking on the phone again. It was part of my life. I'm glad that I don't have some sort of disease from it. You know what I'm saying? Literally, think about it. Things happen. And I remember I always used to wear a headset, though, the ones that plug in. I always had a reason to do that, but I use my phone a lot, and I've stopped because my work, I talk all the time, and I work with clients, and so the last thing I want to do is be on the phone all the time. So when I do pick up the phone and I do call somebody, that is important. It's a friend, it's somebody that needs some extra clarity, it's a situation that needs to get settled by a phone call, and there's no other way, shape, and form that this is going to happen. And I find that it cuts through all questions, all concerns, all anything that the email leaves up to be challenged. Because a lot of times people don't read, and if they read, they might read their own thought into it. They might read into it something that's not necessarily correct. And so I find that if you can get them on the phone, you've really taken a lot of the guesswork out, and usually this leads to a wonderful experience, or at least you know right then and there that this is something you don't want to deal with. However, if you can't seem to get them on the phone, and you've tried at least 3 times in a normal amount of time, not like back to back to back. I mean, some of you, come on now. It's 3:35, it's 3:37, it's 3:39, and you call those 3 times and you go, well, I don't know what the hell's wrong with these people. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you call them one day, might be around, noon. You wait patiently 24 hours, call them again. You wait patiently again, call them another 24 hours, or wait a day or 2. If after 3 calls they have not called you back and you've left voicemails, it means that you can try another mode of communication. And, you honestly, in a nice, considerate way, you let them know that you're not going to proceed with anything that you're doing with them, period, until you've spoken with them on the phone. And it's really that easy because, it's either like you either do this or we don't do that, so I stop wasting my time trying to communicate. And if that doesn't work, then you just move on. If that doesn't work, you just move on. And that's what's so cool about it, is that you don't have to wait around anymore. But you gotta literally think about this as a process. Communication is a process. And in order to know what you have to do next, you gotta let certain things happen and let certain things move on. And the only way that you can successfully do that is to exhaust all opportunity, to exhaust all modes of communication, so that you fully know that this is either going to work or it's not going to work, and you can move on. So let's begin to talk about the texting irritating responses and why they irritate us, really, and what we can do about it. Because what does it really mean? Because once we actually break it down and realize why we internalize a certain way, why we feel a certain way about this response, we're better equipped to understand why this is affecting us and to move on. The first texting irritant response that we talked about was thumbs up. It was the thumbs up symbol that all of us were like, God bless, not that thumbs up symbol. And not the yellow thumbs up. Everybody uses that yellow thumbs up. Come on now. They've given all kinds of skin colors out there, and everybody uses the same one. So that means that they either have carpal tunnel syndrome, where they can't use their fingers very well because it hurts. Okay? They can't find their glasses, and all they can find is that one symbol. They're lazy. They don't care about what you are telling them or responding to them or asking them. Doesn't matter that much to them. They're in a meeting. They don't have a lot of time to respond, so they just want to let you know that they did get your message, and later on they come back with a normal response, which is good. They're drunk, or they're stoned, or they're just downright rude. And so these are the reasons why they might use the thumbs up. And so a caveat here. If they continue responding like that, they are probably rude. Unless they change. If they change and this is like a 1-time or 2-time thing, realize it's an anomaly, and realize that this isn't something that's consistent, and understand that you got to give some people some room to do things, and you don't have to judge them on everything they do. And I'm not sitting there telling people to judge other people, but I'm saying if you're consistently getting this over and over again, and they're not really reading your messages, and they're not really responding, you need to sit there and wonder why you're even in communication with this person to begin with. And if it's a work communication thing, it's time to move on and find somebody else that can be your counterpoint. If it's a relationship, you got to look at it and say, how much do I really care about this relationship? Am I in this relationship? Do I love this relationship? And why is it that I feel like this is a one-sided deal? I mean, because in any relationship, especially a love relationship, a dating situation, you want to have respect on both sides. And the last thing you want is somebody basically just discounting everything you're saying and bringing it down to that lowest common denominator, which makes you feel insecure, makes you feel not cared about, makes you feel like, why am I here? I get a better response from, from my doctor, and an automated text message saying that I need to come in for a checkup. At least there was like 7 words on that, and they left the phone number. What about the K? The uppercase K. To me, it's lazy. It also might be to the point, meaning that they accept everything that you say. Okay. And so that's the first way that I take the K, is the okay, that they've accepted everything I've said. There's no question about what I've said. They like what I had to say. And they're in complete and utter compliance with everything that I texted. And that is the first way that I interpret that response. That's the first way I always interpret that response, because there's no reason to interpret it in a negative manner. It just means, hell yeah! Totally agree with everything you just said. Woohoo! And I think that's interesting, because a lot of times we see it as rude, but I think that we have to just look at it from a different perspective and say, okay, they totally agree. Now, they might come back and say whatever, but you can just say, hey, by the way, you said K, and I thought you were just in total compliance with what I had to say. The lowercase k as well. And I think it's interesting with the lowercase k, on most of the smartphones, you have to go back, because the first letter that comes out is going to be, an uppercase, a capital letter. So you got to go back and change that. Think about it. You got to actually go back and change that, or hold down the cap key to make sure that it comes out a lowercase. And that to me is always kind of odd. I mean, why are you going to such extreme to basically lower the response? And I think that's either rude, or they think they're being cute, or that's just what they've always done. And again, I feel that a lot of us really think a lot about things, and we have to just kind of pull it back and realize that until something's said, or until anything else changes, when somebody responds that way to you, it means that they are in complete and utter compliance with everything that you've said. The one thing that always kind of bugs people, though, and I find this very interesting, is the no response. Is the no response. When somebody doesn't respond to you, doesn't respond to your emails, doesn't respond to your texting. And it's interesting, because I know that both modes of communication can get lost on a phone, or you could lose your email. But for the most part, most people are holding onto their phones like grim death. You see people go into the bathroom all the time with their phone. You're like, golly. I mean, where do they put it when they're going to the bathroom? I mean, people carry their phones like it's part of their body. Like, if they leave that phone down, their heart's going to stop beating. Something bad's going to happen. So for the most part, if you send a text, they got it. They got it. And you could pretty much take that to the bank. I mean, it's not all the time. It's not all the time, depending on carriers and all that stuff, but depending on your carrier. And I've had some issues with my phone. It's not all the time. But for the most part, after 2 or more texts, and you still don't have a response, and they're in the country, and they have your number, or you sent your name with the text to make sure that they know it's you, realize that for some reason, it might not have anything to do with you, because most of the time it doesn't. People's thoughts and people's issues and people's stuff usually has nothing to do with you. It's all in their mind. But realize that you should move on. To some degree, for whatever reason, they are not truly interested in spending time with you, and they don't want to spend time with you, basically. And I'm not saying it's all about you. For the most part, think about it. When we go into communications with other people, for the most part, when people talk to us, they're talking always through a filter. They're talking through their filter of their past experiences, their past problems, their heartbreak, their heartache. And so it's really difficult for a lot of people to be authentic and to have a communication with somebody in an authentic way, because they're truly busy kind of meandering through their experiences and trying to piecemeal it together as something that they've already dealt with. And so a lot of times when somebody doesn't respond to you, it's not because they might not like you, and it's not because you've done anything. It's normally something within them. I mean, unless you have done something, it's still their girlfriend, boyfriend, or something pretty bad like that. But I'm saying in general. For the most part, it has nothing to do with you. But realize that after several texts and you don't get a response and you know that they're around and you know that for the most part they do respond, either they're going to get back with you eventually and let you know what was going on, or you just need to move on. And I say that it's time to move on one way or another, because life is too short to be waiting on people to respond to you when there's a lot of other people out there who would like to be spending time with you. So think about it. And it's also very interesting, too, because a lot of times we get locked into certain groups of people because those are the people we talk to all the time. And one caveat on this show is that I ask you to begin to go through your phone, look through your Rolodex, look through your phone, look through your Rolodex, and reach out to some folks that you haven't spoken to in a while. Reach out to some folks that you haven't spoken to in a while, because I think you're going to really realize that you've been missing out on seeing some people that really care about you. And I think that we get stuck in this rut of, visiting with, a handful of people, and we forget some of the contacts and some of the people we have in our life that we can really, really get along with and communicate well. And it's time to kind of go back into that Rolodex and revisit it. And it's also time to start clearing it out a little bit. Who really do you want to spend time with? Who have you not really spoken to? Reach out. If they don't really reach back out after a little while, maybe it's time to start cleaning out that Rolodex a little bit. Because, again, you can always make new friends and find new people. But, it's hard because when we feel like we have all this going on, sometimes it can be hard for us to do that spring cleaning. And I find with anything in life, it's good to take inventory of what you have, what's around, what's your best option, but better yet, just to kind of know what's going on. And I feel like reaching out to people is also good because people realize that you're there. You're around. And it's good to get out of that little clique that's at the top of your texting messages, because you start to realize that you've kind of like closed yourself into a small group of people, and it's time to widen that friendship group back out. So let's talk right now about what you can begin to do to prevent yourself from doing these irritating things to other people. Because it's one thing to deal with it, but it's another thing to keep dishing it back out to other people as well. And sometimes it's hard not to, because when you're getting bombarded by the K and the small K and the people who don't read and the people that use too many emoticons and don't use any words, this can be a little overwhelming. And so what can you do to not carry on with the irritating text messages and emails and prevent you from doing this with other people? The first thing that you can begin doing right now is to be genuine with your word. Basically, this is what that means. If you want to do something, then let people know that you want to do something. If you don't want to do something, then let people know that you don't want to do something. I find it interesting that a lot of people don't respond after you ask them a question. And it's not like you really are like wanting things to go a certain way. It's not like if it doesn't happen this way, I'm going to freak out. But you're kind of holding out on it. And let me give you a good example. Like somebody's got concert tickets. Somebody's got concert tickets, and that's great. And they call you. And they go, "Hey, Ashley, what's going on?" You're like, "Hey, what's up?" And they're like, "I got tickets for tonight, man. I know it's last minute, but I just got these tickets given to me. And I was wanting to see if you wanted to go." And a lot of us go, "Oh, wow, that's cool. What time is the concert?" "Oh, it's at 8 o'clock. Who's playing?" Whoever. And right then and there, depending on your schedule and your responsibilities, you should know if you want to go and if it's even an option or not. Usually, unless you have a bunch of kids and you told your spouse that you were going to specifically be at home, or your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, you're specifically going to be at home. Otherwise, there really is no need to make a call. Unless they have extra tickets or whatever. But some of us, okay, it's time, you got to make a call. Let me call my wife, my husband, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my roommate, whatever, and let me make sure this is cool. Usually, after that call you make or that text you make, it's time to respond back. But there's a lot of people out there that just leave people hanging. And it's like you could go have somebody else come with you, but you're waiting it out. And I find that if we're genuine with our word, and we tell people, yes, I can be a part of that charity organization, or no, I can't. Or yes, I think that'll work, or no, I don't. It's so much easier for people because they can go find someone else. The problem is a lot of times that it becomes hard because somebody's waiting for you to respond because you said, hey, I'll call you right back, I'll let you know. And they're holding out for you, thinking that you're probably going to come through, and then eventually when you don't, they get angry. And they don't get angry because you said no, they get angry because you left them hanging. I've been on both sides of that. I've been the one that left people hanging, and I've been the one that was waiting, holding the bag. And so just be genuine with your word. Say, yes, I can, or no, I can't, or hey, I wish I could, but I'm not going to be able to. And you know what? If people are angry, fine. That sucks, but they'll either get over it or they won't. You'll either be friends or not. You'll either work together or you won't. But one way or another, you know where everybody stands. And I found that when we are genuine with our word, usually we find other people who are genuine with their word. And we definitely get rid of the folks who aren't. Because someone that's genuine with their word can't stand... Well, not can't stand, that's harsh. Will not tolerate. How is that? Will not tolerate someone who is not, genuine in their word. Because they don't need to tolerate it. They don't need to dumb it down and deal with somebody that's full of crap. They'll just find other people who are also genuine in their word, and it makes it easier for them to move on. The second thing that you can do to prevent yourself from basically carrying on with these irritants with other people is to go back to the old school ways of doing things. Mosey on back to the old school way of doing things because it seems to get a lot more done. It seems that the old school ways of doing things actually work better now than they ever did. And I think that's true because of three reasons. The first reason is that it shows that you have class. I know. Who would have thunk it back in the day making a call? People would think in this day and age that you have class. The second thing is that it shows that you took time out of your schedule to call or to go the extra mile. But last but not least, it shows that you actually care. You care to get to the bottom of things. You care to understand things. And the three ways that you can do that is by picking up the phone and calling someone. The old school call. Yeah, you got to put the number in the phone. It's not a rotary phone anymore, but you got to push the numbers in or hit send, highlight the number and send, or go to your Rolodex on your phone and send, or look at the business card and put that in the phone and send. See, not that hard though, really not. Even if you have that area code and numbers and all that stuff, it's really not that hard. You got 3 numbers in the area code, 3 numbers in the first part of the phone, 4 numbers in the back part of the phone. So it's really not that hard if you think about it. It's only 10 digits you're having to put in. Or you show up in a positive manner. You show up to their work, or you show up and maybe even drop something off at their secretary, or you drop off flowers for somebody that you have feelings for. Or you show up to take them to lunch. You do something that's going, in parentheses, out of your way, but it's really not going out of your way, because the more we communicate in an effective way, the better we are to understand the situation, the better we are to not stick in a situation that's not going to last, and the faster we're going to get to know if this is something we want to stick in or not. Another old school way of communicating is to write a letter. Yes, to write a letter and put it in what we call an envelope. It's an envelope. It's like, normally they're white, and you need to have a stamp. There's a stamp. You got to go to the post office to get a stamp. You can actually go get stamps everywhere in the world, basically. Well, I mean, in America, you can get them, at CVS and Walgreens and Office Depot and Office Max and, borrow them from some friends down the street because you're too lazy to go to the post office kind of thing. But you can get, so basically the three things you can do old school is to pick up the phone and call, to show up, or to write a letter. And those things show that you have class, you've gone out of your way, you've taken time out of your schedule, and you care about clarifying a situation and making it the best it can be. And, the last part of this concept that I want to underline and put a drum roll behind it, because I think this is really what it all breaks down to, is that these communication irritants is that when it's time to move on. When it's time to move on. And and the better thing about doing this, the awesome thing that you could do that would even take you a step further, is to do some personal work to figure out, prior to having to decipher a text message or an email or anything like that, or a no response, prior to having to decipher that, is know the status of the relationship you're in before all that. Understand the writing on the wall and not having to look at somebody's text messages to decipher. Oh, they put a capital K or a lowercase k, and they do this all the time. Do they care about me? To see the writing on the wall. If somebody's not that into you, if it's a romance thing, if somebody's not that into you, if somebody doesn't seem to give you a lot of time, if somebody doesn't really respect the relationship. On the flip side, if it is a business type relationship, maybe it's time to find another contact in that organization that will actually communicate with you. Because if you're trying to get something done and they're not responding, you've got to figure out the next step. Do you just stop right there and say, well, life was good. That was it. No other options for me now. I guess because Deborah didn't call me back, it's the end. No, you got to move on. And the faster you know it, the less time that you waste dealing with this crap. But when it comes down to all of these responses, that you should probably know, and you should probably kind of think about it beforehand and kind of realize where you're at in the situation. But even if it takes you to have to look at that text message and realize, or look at the no responses over a period of time and know that this person, either for whatever reason or another, either isn't into you, doesn't want to be your friend, isn't interested, doesn't respect you, whatever it is, you can't really read their mind, but you just know that they're not responding. At that point in time, it's time to realize to move on. And the things that we have to do as a person is just to be honest. Be honest. Be honest with ourselves. Be honest with other people. Be honest about the way we feel. And that can be kind of painful sometimes, but it's a lot easier than lying. Because when we lie and we tell people what they want to hear, we can't keep that up very long. And better yet, we're not being very honest, so a lot of times we're going to get ourselves talking into situations we don't want to be in, we don't want to deal with, we don't want to work on, we don't want that. And what we're doing stuff that we don't want to do. We want to be authentic in everything that we do. In all facets of our life, we want to be authentic and real and honest. Because the cool thing about being honest and being authentic is that it might offend a few people. It might upset some other people. It might turn some people off from you and go, oh, God. But you know what? When you're honest and you're authentic about what you truly want and who you truly are, that's fine, because the people that matter and the people in general that you need to be spending time with, that you need to be around, those people will come to you. And you will find those people. And you won't be bogged down by the people that don't have the same interests, the same thought process, the same values. You won't be bogged down by that. And sometimes it takes to be uncomfortable. Sometimes it's amazing to be a little uncomfortable in life because we're able to really see where we are, where our loyalties lie, but better yet, what we really want in life. Next, you want to be honest. You want to be authentic. You want to be you. You want to be nothing but just you. You. It's like anything. It's like if you went into an interview and you decided to be somebody else in the interview to try to get the job, and let's just say you get the job, right? Well, how are you going to keep that up? But most of the time what's going to happen is you try to be somebody else in the interview and you don't get the job and you don't have a second chance to prove the fact that that wasn't you. And sometimes maybe you act like you're somebody else in the interview and you do get the job, right? But was that job for you to begin with? Or did you just sabotage yourself? I mean, I don't want to be anybody else but myself. And yes, there's tons of people out there that have a lot more money than me. People out there that got more stardom, more coverage right now than I do. Some people out there that have kids and a big family. And those are certain things that I do like. But I wouldn't trade my life for anyone. And I think about that kind of stuff and I realize the value within me. And I ask you to realize the value within you. And once you realize the value within you, act accordingly. When people basically disrespect you or act certain ways, move on. If they come back around, you make a decision. But the thing is that it's about you. And you determine the way that people respond to you. You determine the amount of respect other people give you. You set the bar. If you set the bar utterly low, you will get little respect. And a lot of times it's not just about them, it's about respecting ourselves. There are some people out there in your Rolodex that you do not need to be spending time with, you do not need to be communicating with, and you wonder why they don't respond to you. Well, you know what? It's a good thing. Move on. Life is short enough to be wrapped up in a bunch of relationships and friendships and whatever else that aren't working. And so beginning now, be honest with what you want. Be authentic in your life with what you need, what you want, what you're happy with, what you're not happy with, what you will not deal with, what you will deal with, and be you. Because that's the only way in business, in relationships and love that you're going to get to where you want to be at and you're going to be happy. Because if you aren't you in certain situations, it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. So remember, when you get irritated by certain communication issues and communication breakdown issues and people that don't read and people that do seem to be rude or people that either have carpal or they're drunk, because those are the only reasons you would accept what they just said, it's time to kind of rethink what we're dealing with. And just realize and begin to understand who truly values you and who do you truly value, and see how that can actually be set together instead of you trying to go after people who don't necessarily value you. Stay tuned. I got a great show for you next. And check out Ashley Burgess, ashleyburgess.com, as well as tweet me at Ashley Burgess. And if you get a chance, go here on Spreaker or iTunes and add some stars and add a comment about how you feel about the show and even some topic ideas that you have that you would like me to talk about. I'm always open to listening to ideas, and I love to address subject matter that actually matters to you and that you'd like to hear my perspective on. I got a great show for you next, and Live Your True Life Perspectives with me, Ashley Burgess. We'll be back this time in, I'll be back this time in 3 shakes.